So thank you all for coming tonight, and thank everybody for being online at YouTube. And I noticed something. I watched the last week because there was a lot of things there that I wanted to be clear about, and I was surprised at the low resolution. And does anybody know how I can get high definition on YouTube? Because it defaults a standard definition level. I don't know if it's 480p or whatever it is, but the 720p or 1080i wasn't happening. So does anybody have
It's
a clue about that?
it's in the web interface. It's a setting on each video. You can select the the level on each video. On television, if it's a television set, I'm not sure. Might be in settings, but uh,
No, it's the way it's encoded on or recorded, however you want to look at it.
oh, you're talking about the recording. I
The
have no
recording
idea
that
about
goes
that.
up on YouTube.
I have no idea that. What are you using? You're using Zoom, of course, to record it.
Right.
I don't know. I have no idea how Zoom works, so you'd have to
I think
see
it's
if
a
you can
YouTube.
find it in the
I think it's a
settings
YouTube
somewhere.
issue. All right.
That's
Well, I'll look further into that then. All right. Well, thank you all for coming. And so let me begin, do opening prayers. Um, by the virtue, in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sangye chodang soki chodam la Shangju bardu dagni kapsu chi Dagi jinso ki pe sonamgi Drola penshir sange ju pasho. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Manam kadamyam pesam chantam she dewadang dewe gurdang dempa jorchi. Dognal dang donal gi gudang drawa jorchi. Dognal me pe dewa dang mi drawa jorchi. Ne ring jak dang ni dang drawe dang namla ne pa jorchi. Thank you. Anybody have any questions or comments that you'd like to speak about regarding last week's session or any of the other recent sessions on the sutras? I'd just like to say two things because listening to last week's sessions, there were two things that I thought were left a little bit ambiguous, so I just want to clear them up. The first one is very simple, was we were talking about the three gateways to liberation. I forget exactly now how it was phrased, but the three gateways to liberation are emptiness, signlessness, and wishlessness. So the emptiness was what Bernie was citing as being doorlessness. So emptiness. So a gateway, understanding emptiness, realizing the nature of emptiness. And then and that had to do with the past. And then signlessness had to do with the present. And then wishlessness had to do with the future. So these are the three gateways to liberation, being able to control our mind wandering off to things of the past, present, and future, and rather than being in the now. So that was one point I wanted to clear up for those interested. And the second thing was we were talking about the awakening of the Bodhisattva to become Buddha. So clearly in that chapter 22.35 through 22.42 was kind of focused, where it was recognized that he had been awakened. In 22.34, he had said, I have put an end to suffering, thereby becoming awakening, and so on. And so he then goes on, and the gods go on, and so on, and being able to say, yes, indeed, the Bodhisattva had attained enlightenment and had become the thus gone one. They referred to him as the thus gone one. So you might want to, if you're interested, you might want to follow that up and see how they worded that. Okay. So now we're on chapter 23, the Exaltation. So if you had a chance to read this ahead of time, you know that this is an exaltation by the gods and the goddesses, and particularly the four great king gods of the four great kings, and the gods of the five pure realms of the gods, the abodes of the Arhat. And if you guys have the sheet that I was referring to you, I sent to you about the god realms, you can see that these would be the gods of the 13 through 17, the three highest gods of the pure realm, but other gods as well. And if you don't have that, and if you want to look up in our glossary, G476, it gives a very good definition of the highest of the five pure realms of the gods. So you might be interested in referencing that. So why don't we just go through this from the beginning of the chapter to the end of the chapter, taking turns reciting this, and then we can have a discussion afterwards, and there might be time for us to go into the next chapter after this. So, Zara, would you begin the reading on the first page of chapter 23 and go through that page, and then Kunga, if you'll go to the second page, will be great. And then Bernie, the third page, and I'll do the fourth page, and we maintain that order through this chapter. It's 76 verses, so it's not a whole lot of verses. So that was Zara and Kunga, Bernie, and Lance. Okay. All right, so Zara, when you're ready, if you would begin to read, that'd be great.
Exaltation. Then the gods from the pure realms circumambulated the thus gone one who sat at the seat of awakening. They showered him with a rain of divine sandalwood powder and praised him with these fitting verses. You are a light that has dawned upon this world, illuminating Lord of the world. You have given eyes for abandoning afflictions to this world gone blind. You are victorious in battle. Through merit, you have fulfilled your aim. Complete with virtuous qualities, you will satisfy beings. Sinless, you cross the mire and stand on dry ground. O Gautama, you will ferry across other sentient beings who are carried away by the swift current. Your great insight exalts you. You are without peer throughout the worlds. You are untainted by mundane concerns. Like a lotus floating on water, or the torch of your insight, you can awaken this long slumbering world shrouded in a fog of darkness into the world of the living, chronically troubled with the disease of afflictions. You have come to physicians to cure the world of all illnesses.
Now that you have appeared, O Lord, the unfortunate states will become vacant. Gods and humans will become filled with happiness. Those who seek to behold you, O gentle bull among men, will never go to the lower realms for thousands of eons. Those who listen to the Dharma will become scholars and be free of illness. They will be profound and bring an end to the aggregates and be free from fear. As they sever the bonds of affliction, they will all be free of clinging and swiftly become liberated, and thus attain the fruition of supreme virtue. They will be objects of generosity in the world, worthy of receiving gifts. Donations to them will not diminish, but become causes for all beings to reach nirvana. Monks, once the gods from the realm of the pure realms had praised the thus gone one in this manner, they prostrated to the thus gone one with palms joined and stood to one side. Monks, then the luminous gods paid homage to the thus gone one, sitting at the seat of awakening, with a plethora of flowers, incense, perfumes, garlands, unguents, parasols, standards, and flags. When the offerings had been made, they circumambulated him 3 times and then praised him with these verses. Your mind is profound, O sage, and your voice is sweet. O supreme sage, your song-like voice is melodious like Brahma's. You have discovered the absolute awakening, most sublime. Homage to you who has reached the culmination of all melodious tunes. You are protection, an island, the highest goal. You are the compassionate and loving Lord of this world. You are the supreme physician, remover of thorns. You are the healer who brings sublime benefit.
As soon as you saw Buddha Dipankara, you attained the cloud masses of love and compassion. Release a torrential downpour of ambrosia, O Lord. Quell the torment of gods and humans. Like a lotus, you are untamed by the 3 worlds. Like mirror, you are immovable and unshakable. Like a Vajra, your pledge is unwavering. Like the moon, you are replete with the best of all qualities. Monks, once the luminous gods had praised the Luskan one, so they bowed to him with palms joined and stood to one side. Then the gods from the Brahma realm, led by the son of the gods, Subraman, covered the Luskan ones sitting at the seat of awakening with a jewel net studded with many trillions of gems. They circumambulated him 3 times and praised him with these fitting verses. With your virtuous and stainless insight, you radiate and shine. You are replete with the 32 most sublime characteristics. Attentive and intelligent, you possess wisdom. Timeless one, to you we bow down. Utterly devoid of the 3 stains, you are stainless and pure. Renowned throughout the 3 worlds, discoverer of the threefold knowledge, you bestow insight into the threefold liberation. We bow to you who possess the 3 stainless eyes. You have banished the foul dark eon. You are of well-restrained mind. Exalted in compassion and love, you work for the welfare of beings. Sage, exalted in joy, your mind is tranquil. Deliverer from doubt, you delight in impartiality. Exalted in discipline and austerity, you act for the welfare of beings. Having purified your own conduct, you have reached the culmination of conduct. As the teacher of the 4 truths, you delight in emancipation. Being liberated yourself, you liberate other beings as well. When Mara, powerful and persistent, arrived, you defeated him with your insight, diligence, and love. And then you have attained the deathless supreme state. Vanquisher of the villainous hordes, to you we pay homage. Monks, once the gods of the Brahma realm, led by the great god Subraman, had praised the Luskan one with these verses. They bowed to him with palms joined and stood to one side.
Then those sons of Mara who were on the side of righteousness approached the thus gone one and covered him with the giant jewel parasols and canopies. Then with palms joined they praised the thus gone one with these fitting verses. When we, the dreadful army of Mara, appeared before you, in your vast power you vanquished instantaneously our terrifying demonic horde, without rising, moving, or saying a word. Sage, who accomplishes all aims and is honored in the three worlds, we pay homage to you. The trillions of demonesses, numerous as the grains of sand in the river Ganges, could not move or sway you from the trunk of the sublime Bodhi tree. They made trillions of offerings to you, as many as the grains of sand in the Ganges. That is why, O Lord, seated here today at the foot of the Bodhi tree, you shine. While pursuing the conduct of supreme awakening, you gave up your dearest wives, beloved sons, servants, gardens, towns, your cities, kingdoms, harems, and elephants. Your eyes, your head, eyes, tongues, and feet, that is why you shine today. As a Buddha wearing the armor of concentration, miraculous power, and intelligence, I myself will ferry across trillions of beings swept away in the ocean of suffering. In the ship of the sublime Dharma, this aspiration that you repeatedly voiced is now fulfilled, and you will liberate all beings. By the merit of praising you, most eminent of speakers, who gave eyes to the world, may we all, rejoicing, aspire to omniscience. As we gain the sublime and peerless awakening that all Buddhas praise, may we defeat the demon hordes and awaken to omniscience. Monks, once the sons of Mara have praised the thus gone one, in this manner, with palms joined, they bowed to the thus gone one and stood to one side.
Then a god from the heaven of making use of others' emanations, surrounded and escorted by millions of gods, sprinkled the thus gone one with golden lotuses from the Jambo River. Then, in his presence, they praised him with these verses. Your speech is gentle, calm, and forthright. Free of the stains of darkness, you have realized the immortal state. You deserve an unparalleled treatment in heaven and on earth. Your intelligence is blazing. To you we bow. You bring joy and have abandoned afflictions and removed stains and blemishes. With your joyous speech, you delight gods and humans. With the light rays from your stainless and effulgent sublime body, you triumph over this world like the master of gods and humans. Vanquisher of foes, you are acknowledgeable in the conduct of others. Beloved in the world of gods and humans, you overturn the thoughts of others. Brilliant and wise one, you illuminate the conduct of others. Walk here on this path traversed by those with the 10 powers. Having relinquished the ubiquitous clinging to the existence suffering falsely construed, may you train gods and humans by training their minds. May you course in the sky throughout the 4 directions like the moon, and so be a sublime eye and final refuge in the 3 worlds. Though beloved in the world of gods and humans, you do not gravitate towards sense objects. Without indulging in desire, you take pleasure in virtue. Proclaimed far and wide, you are without equal in the 3 worlds. You are the protector, the refuge, the only resort of beings here. Monks, once the gods from the heaven of making use of others' emanations, led by the god in charge, had praised the thus gone one with palms joined, they bowed to him and stood to one side.
Next, the god Sunyamitra, surrounded and escorted by an assembly of gods from the heaven of delighting in emanations, covered the thus gone one with ribbons of silk studded with various gemstones. In his presence, praised him with these verses. You are the light of Dharma that has risen from relinquishing the 3 stains. You destroy delusions, beliefs, and ignorance, and unfold brilliance and glory. You place in the deathless state those who indulge in the wrong path. You are an object of veneration here in the world, honored in heaven and earth. You are a physician skilled in healing who dispenses the elixir of happiness. Through the path of the previous victorious ones, you eradicated all illnesses of beings. the lingering symptoms of false belief, affliction, and ignorance that has accumulated. For this reason, you are the sublime physician and guide who courses upon the earth. Sunlight, moonlight, stars, firelight, and the luster of jewels, the luster of Sakra and Brahma, none of it shines in the presence of your splendor. With your brilliance and illuminating insight, you are replete with radiance and glory. To you, whose extraordinary wisdom has directly manifested, we bow down. Consummate guide, whose melodious speech relates what is true and untrue, whose mind is gentle, composed, with subdued sense faculties, and great calmness, a teacher who can instruct the audience of gods and humans in need of instruction. To you, sage of the Sakyas, bull among men, honored by gods and humans, we pay homage. In your intelligence, you hold wisdom, instruction to be supreme, and convey them throughout three existences. You remove the three stains and teach threefold knowledge and threefold liberation. O sage, you understand according to intellect who is fitting vessel and who is not. To you, unique in the tricholicosm, and honored in heavens and on earth, we pay homage. Monks, once the god Sunamita and his entourage had praised the thus gone one with palms joined, they bowed down to the thus gone one and sat to one side.
Next, the god Santushita, along with the other gods from the heaven of joy, approached the thus gone one as he sat in the seat of awakening and draped him with the vast patchwork of divine garments. Then he praised the thus gone one in his presence with these verses. When you were dwelling in the heaven of joy, you taught the Dharma liberally. That teaching of yours continues unabated. Even today, the gods practice the Dharma. We cannot get enough of looking at you, nor can we get enough of listening to the Dharma. Ocean of good qualities, lamp of the world, to you we bow with head and heart. When you departed from the heaven of joy, you exhausted all unfortunate states. Then, while seated at the Bodhi tree, you quelled the afflictions of all beings. To those for whom you discovered vast awakening and defeated Mara. With your aspiration now fulfilled, quick turn the wheel of the Dharma in detail. There are many thousands of beings throughout the 10 directions. Let the Dharma be heard by those who seek it. May you make haste to turn the wheel of Dharma in detail. May you liberate thousands of creatures from existence. Monks, once the god Santushita and his entourage had praised the thus gone one, with palms joined, they bowed to him and sat to one side. Then the gods from the heaven free from strife, led by the god Soyama, went to where the thus gone one was seated. When they arrived, they worshipped the thus gone one, sitting at the seat of awakening with his plethora of flowers, incense, garlands, perfume, and unguents. And in his presence, they praised him with these fitting verses. Who is superior to you? You who are without equal. In discipline, absorption, and insight, to you thus gone one, adopt in inclinations and liberation, we pay homage with our heads bowed.
We witness at the seat of awakening the magnificent displays performed by the gods. How you are worshipped by gods and humans. No one else deserves this awe. It is not in vain that you have come, enduring great hardship in the process. Defeating the wicked one and his army, you attained unexcelled awakening. You have illuminated the 10 directions, lit up the 3 worlds with the lamp of your insight. It is you who will remove the world's cataracts, bestowing upon it unexcelled eyes. Praising you for an eon will not even cover the pores of your body. Ocean of good qualities, renowned throughout the world. To you, thus gone one, we pay homage with our heads bowed. Once the gods from the heaven, free from strife, led by the god Suryama, had praised the thus gone one. With palms joined, they bowed to the thus gone one and then stood to one side. Then Sakra, lord of the gods, together with the gods from the heaven of the 33, paid homage to the thus gone one, with a display of flowers, incense, garlands, unguents, parasols, standards, and flags, then praised him with these verses. O sage, you are unflappable, faultless, and ever stable, like Mount Meru. With merit and splendor, your wisdom light is renowned throughout the 10 directions. O sage, you previously paid homage to hundreds of thousands of Buddhas, and in their place you have overcome the demon horde at the Bodhi tree. Source of discipline, learning, absorption, and insight, you are the banner of wisdom. Destroyer of old age and death, you are the supreme physician who gives eyes to the world. O sage, having cast off the 3 defilements and defects, your sense faculties are restrained, your mind composed. To you, O bull among Sakyas, Dharma king of beings, we go for refuge.
Your work to achieve awakening, exalted by the force of your perseverance, was infinite. Your powers, the powers of your insight, skillful means, love, and great merit, were already infinite, O Blessed One, when you set out for the state of awakening. Thus you have the strength of the 10 powers today on the seat of awakening. Seeing the infinite hordes of armies, the gods became anxious and frightened, lest the king of mendicants and repose at the seat of awakening should be troubled. But the spirits did not frighten you, nor could they move your body. Rather, your hands struck hard, shaking them, and you defeated Mara's army. Just as the previous ones attained sublime awakening on the lion's throne, you have followed in their footsteps. You awakened and became the same as them. Identical in heart and mind, you have attained omniscience, thus sublime being in the world, self-arisen one, you are a field of merit for beings. Monks, once Sakra, lord of the gods, together with the gods from the heaven of the 33, had praised the thus gone one. With palms joined, they bowed to the thus gone one and sat to one side. Next, the 4 great kings, together with the gods from the heaven of the 4 great kings, went to the place where the thus gone one was. When they arrived, they had paid homage to him. Hundreds of thousands of gods surrounded him, holding garlands and bouquets of Ambahumkutaka flowers, Kampaka flowers, jasmine flowers, nutmeg blossoms, and Danyusakari flowers. Hundreds of thousands of celestial maidens surrounded him, singing divine songs. Thereafter they all praised the thus gone one with these fitting verses. You whose speech is exceedingly melodious and whose cadence is captivating, who is shooting and clear-minded like the moon, whose face is smiling and whose tongue is long, you, supreme enrapturing sage, we pay homage.
When your melodious speech, a voice so sweet and beloved among gods and humans, resounds throughout all the worlds, it surpasses the voice of all who can speak. It quells the afflictions of attachment, anger, and delusion. It engenders pristine joy within non-humans. Upon hearing the Dharma with a stainless heart, they all attain exalted liberation. You do not despair at the ignorant, nor are you ever drunk with conceit about your knowledge. You are neither pompous nor timid. Like a firm mountain in the middle of a sea, people here have profited well, since such a being has appeared in the world. Like the goddess of wealth, who is the giver of riches, you will bestow your Dharma throughout the whole world. Once the gods of the heaven of the 4 great kings, led foremost by the 4 great kings themselves, had praised the thus gone one in repose at the seat of awakening, they joined palms and bowed to the thus gone one instead to one side. Then the gods of the sky approached the thus gone one, as a way of paying homage to the perfect and completely awakened one. The gods adorned the whole sky with a net of jewels and small bells. They offered him jewel parasols, jewel banners, jewels and silk brocades, wreaths, ornate jewel earrings, flower wreaths, and pearl strands of various types held by gods who revealed the upper half of their bodies, as well as crescent moons. Upon making these offerings in his presence, they praised him with these verses. Dwelling constantly in the sky, O sage, we clearly see all the activities of beings as they are. Looking at your conduct, O pristine, sentient being, we do not see confusion in your focused mind. The sky is filled with guides of humans, bodhisattvas who have come to pay tribute. Since in this way they are bodies of space, no harm is caused to a celestial mansion.
even though rains of flowers enough to fill the world system to the brim descend upon your body from the sky, they are like rivers flowing into an ocean. We see parasols, flowers, earrings, and garlands, wreaths of kampaka flowers, necklaces, moons, and crescent moons. The gods bestow you with them, yet they are not mixed together. There is no room for even a hair. The whole sky is filled with gods. They pay homage to you, supreme biped, but you are neither proud nor overwhelmed. Once the gods of the sky had praised the Thus-Gone One in repose at the seat of awakening, they joined palms and bowed to him and stood to one side. Then the terrestrial gods, in order to pay homage to the Thus-Gone One, cleansed and anointed the entire surface of the earth, sprinkled it with perfumed water, strewed it with flowers, covered with canopies of various dyed fabrics, and then offered it to the Thus-Gone One. Thereafter they praised him with these verses. The trichiliocosm has become indestructible and firm as a Vajra. You sat on the seat of awakening by virtue of your Vajra hand posture when you said, even should my skin, flesh, bones, and marrow shrivel up right here, I will not rise from this place without reaching awakening. If you lying among men do not consecrate the entire trichiliocosm, then the whole thing will collapse with the violent shock of the arrival of bodhisattvas, the soles of whose feet will cause 10 million realms to quake. As illustrious gifts to an illustrious gift is gained by the terrestrial God whenever the most sublime being, happens to walk. You illuminate darkness everywhere in the world. Now that the trichiliocosm is a basis for worship, how much more so is your body? Should we take hold of all the lands of the trichiliocosm, all the myriad hundreds of thousands of subterranean bodies of water, and all the myriad livelihoods of beings in these places, we would offer it all to you. May you use it according to your wishes. Whenever you shall sit, travel, or rest, and wherever the heavens hearers know who are the children of the well-gone Gautama shall preach or listen to the Dharma, we shall dedicate all the roots of virtue for the sake of awakening. Once the terrestrial gods had praised in this manner the Thus-Gone One, sitting and reposed at the seat of awakening, they bowed down to him with palms joined and stood to one side. This concludes the 23rd chapter on exaltation.
Very good. Thank you. So does I sent these papers regarding the God realms, and Zara, I didn't send it to you, but you said you were going to be able to print it. Did you manage to do that?
Sorry, I think I already. Can you show it to me, please? Can you show me the images?
Well, this was the front page. It was on legal size paper, and you said you would be able to print it.
Okay, I don't have it. Is it double-sided or just one page?
It's one page. A couple pages are one page. A couple sizes are double side.
Okay. I don't have
Well,
it printed. I apologize.
huh?
It's okay. I'll pull it up right now on my laptop.
Well, I can send it to you. I can print it and send it to you so you have it for your reference. But it's interesting, the main point here is that here the gods of all these different realms, all those gods of the tradition that came before the Buddha, who worship these gods and so on, they all are saying, yes, this is the Buddha. This is the one who will be able to help lead us all to enlightenment. through his teachings, through his wisdom, through his actions, and so on. So going through this is an exercise in trying to understand those gods, who those gods are. But to do it, so here it's all in a order for us, so we can see it. Congo, Bernie, did you take a look at these? Did you find this helpful in any way to you?
Yeah, it's a good summary of the different levels, different God realms, which is always pretty complicated stuff. But yeah, it's a nice list. I mean, I didn't memorize it or anything like that, but it's nice to have this stuff handy.
Yeah, so it was so all these definitions really came from the glossary. So what I did was just and through this chapter, wherever there was a reference and a name to that particular god realm, etc., then I cross-referenced it to the glossary, and then put it in this order here. So there was a logical order to it we could see, and it starts from the top down, and that's an interesting point. So it starts with understanding who the gods are, and then it goes from the and then excuse me, here it goes from the bottom up. I'm sorry, but in the book it goes from the top down. So in either case, it's in a sequential order for us to be able to follow. So it's the kind of thing that you can spend a day, studying something like this. I think, it took me about a week to put this together, and it was a great exercise, I think, to be able to do this and think about, what the history of this is, what the tradition was before the Buddha came, and how all these gods, now are all, in agreement to point to the Buddha and say, oh, yes, indeed, you are, the one who can lead us to liberation from our suffering. So, would anybody like to comment upon it? Bernie, what do you think about, this chapter in general?
Well, it's got a kind of repetitive form in that you stage by stage go through each of the different God realms, and they give their different praises to the Buddha, praising his accomplishments, praising his abilities and various things. It's basically a list of different praises of the Buddha, and not only praises of him, but requests to turn the wheel of the Dharma. So it's interesting in places because of the language they use and the but there's not really much new in the way there as far as understanding of Buddhist concepts in the whole text. It's kind of it's at least that I didn't see it from this reading. So it's just more or less uh, a, a praise of the Buddha and at length by various different classes of beings.
Yes. Kungu, you have any comment about it?
I think it's an interesting way to incorporate. I think about Christianity going into countries where they weren't practicing other religions, and Christianity just like pushing them aside or annihilating those practices. And in this way here, instead of pushing it aside or pretending that cultural history doesn't exist and trying to wipe it out, it's just sort of incorporated. So all the gods that were prayed to or were used as a path for spiritual awakening and now have been all incorporated into Buddhism. They all basically are just saying, oh, you just need to follow the Buddha. You don't need to pray to me anymore, really. So I thought that was an interesting way to bring together all those practices.
Yeah, that's a very good observation, I think. Zara, do you have any comment about this? I know you haven't seen it except maybe on your computer, but what does this mean to you?
Um, this for me is like part of I guess um I'm more intellectually interested in this right now, this particular chapter and this part of the sequence. This particular part of what we're reading this week was harder for me to experientially relate to. It's more foundational knowledge. So I think it from that point, kind of like what Bernie and Kunga have just said, that helps me understand because I actually what Kunga just said helped me even better understand what I was just reading. You know how sometimes you have to read something a couple times to really understand what's happening? What Kunga just said made it easier. And Bernie obviously always has a very linear way of breaking something robust down. So I understand it relative to the context of what's happened. So thank you, Bernie and Kunga, for your comments. That was helpful for me.
Yeah, so I think, in Judaism and Christianity, the Christianity came out of the Judaism, but the Judaism really doesn't support the Christianity. And the Christianity, I think, is casting dispersions on the Judaism to some degree, But in the Hinduism, the Buddhism, the Buddha came out of that, but here it's clearly, like Kunga just said, it's clearly supporting that and being able to say, well, the Buddha supersedes everything that you have all been worshiping us for. We bow to the Buddha. So there is that representation in that way. And in the artwork, you'll see, many of the statues, many of the paintings in particular, the Tanka paintings and so on of the different deities, which are all emanations of Buddha. You can think of them all collectively as Buddha, but then they have different areas of their activities is what separates them. But essence-wise, they are all identical, all the same. And the point I'm trying to make is that as we see these Buddhas, as many of them are standing, they're standing on the great gods, the great kings of the Hinduism, indicating that they are arising from that. It's like standing on their shoulders, so to speak. On their shoulders are we allowed to be able to grow and so on. So I find that very, very great. And that's one of the things that I like about, this Eastern philosophy is that there's an evolution to it that is very peaceful and very serene and very natural, very organic and so on. It doesn't push things away, it brings things together. And I personally enjoy that very much.
That's a really good point. It's not divisive in how in its sort of growth, right? Like as it evolved, it didn't. There's not an attempt to create disunity or divisiveness or conflict. Whereas other religions that we're more traditionally familiar with are constantly belittling each other. So that's a good point. Thank you, Lance.
Yeah. Yeah, I was always struck. One of my heroes was Gandhi, of India, and in the film that was my introduction to Gandhi, who Gandhi was, And there was this one particular scene where he's explaining to somebody that in their tradition, in their temples or whatever, it may be a Hindu temple, but the Hindu teacher will be going from the texts of Hindu into the Four Noble Truths and the teaching of the Buddha, as well as into the Bible, because there was a strong Christian group of people that were in India. So he's making the point that the masters, the teachers in India will be going through these three great books, these three great teachings, the Bhagavad Gita, the Bible, and the Four Noble Truths, will be going through them seamlessly to be able to make their spiritual points and so on to their congregations. So I was always struck by that. I thought that was great, and I've come to recognize that that's the way it happens in the East. It's very, very beautiful that way. So does anybody else have any comments? Because we'll go on to the next chapter if unless you have some comments or questions that you want to talk about.
Well, there's interesting here that they, of course, not just go through the different god realms. They mentioned the previous Buddha, Dipankara, at one point, and there's that one section where the terrestrial gods are talking about cleaning the earth, making it a suitable vessel for the Buddha, and it sort of parallels the sort of practice that we do in the mandala offering. So I was struck by that because in the mandala offering, first you clean off the plate, and then you make, which represents the earth, and then you make the offering on the basis of the clean plate. And here they're talking about the terrestrial gods, talking about cleaning and anointing the surface of the earth and sprinkling it with perfumed water. That prayer, you do when the mandala offering really kind of parallels what it says here in verse 2370. So as we were reading it, those are the things that struck me. And
so the prayer that Bernie's referencing is in the red book that we have, and
yeah,
on page 13 is the short mandala offering. So if you want,
it's not exactly the same thing, but it's similar.
So yeah, much of the practices and the prayers and everything that are used in Buddhism originated from from the Hindu.
Well, from the scriptures, this is from the Buddhist scriptures here. So it's really just a lot of the prayers are actually based on the different Buddhist scriptures, which I'm sure was familiar to whoever first wrote the mandala offering prayer.
And while we're talking
It's
about
just,
it, I'm sorry, go ahead.
it's just the first line. It said that the ground is sprinkled with scented water and strewn with flowers. And it says in 2370, in order to pay homage to the thus gone one, cleansed and anointed the entire earth, surface of the earth, sprinkled it with perfume water, strewed it with flour, and covered with like canopies of various dyed fabrics, and then offered it to the thus gone one. And of course, in the mandala offering prayer, you offer the mandala to the Buddha, just as they're doing right here. So that parallel just struck me as we were reading it.
So in this paper that we have on page 1 and page 2, moving from the bottom up, you see the 6 God realms, the 6 desire God realms. So these are the terrestrial gods, if you will. And included in there are these 4 great kings that they're talking about, and then the heaven of the 33, and the heaven of joy, Tushita, and the heaven of delighting in others' emanations and making use of others' emanations. So it's a very practical thing. It's like a way station, if you will, between, coming from the absolute, coming from, that absolute nature, and then becoming more and more of a being, and getting ready to come to the earth, to human beings, to be able to bring that wisdom of the absolute, as that transmission is coming in. And as we are moving up, it becomes, an object for beings who are working from the bottom up to be able to aspire to go to the heaven of joy, to be able to go to the delighting in emanations and so on like that. So that's the six God desire realms, the form realms. And then after that are the 17 formless, desireless realms. They're the form realms, but the desireless realms. So in these papers, it goes into more detail, and then from the glossary and so on. So you can see how this works. After the six God desire realms are these four heavens that are broken down as the worldly heavens, which are the heavens of Brahma. And then there's three heavens that are in the Brahma class. And then the next one is the luminous heavens. And after that are the virtuous heavens. And then after that are the meritorious heavens. So these are explained in the glossary. And then you come to the five pure realms of the abodes of the Arhats. So these are the desireless, but yet form realms, but they're very, very, very pure, very high. These are the realms of the Arhats. And then finally, then after that, this is all the Sambhogagaya. This is all the enjoyment body that's explained in the Tibetan Buddhism, and so well with all the iconography and everything. So these are the 17 desireless form gods. And then after that comes the four formlessnesses, which have no form. There's no gods associated with them. There's no form associated with them. And they represent the four next levels of absorption. We started off with the four meditative absorptions of conceptuality and discursive thought and so on, and then we go through the process of purifying that, and then we go through all these gods. Then we get to the four formlessness realms, whereas the limitless of space, the limitless of consciousness, the stage of nothing whatever, and then finally the stage beyond awareness and non-awareness. So all this, bringing this together, makes it very easy to be able to see a structure and what it is that we've been trying to do in understanding our spirituality and so on. So I think it's very helpful. And but like I said, it takes some time to be able to really penetrate, the subtleties of each of these stages and so on. So, but it's a great, great study if you want to make a day of it or a weekend of it or something like that, and cross-referencing with maybe some of the books you have and everything. It's really a magnificent thing to do. It's taken me years to be able to put this together because this was introduced to us at Tibetan Meditation Center many years ago by Khenpo Trinley. And she gave us a paper that had these listed, but it was just the bare names. It didn't have any explanation, and they weren't in a clear order to be able to understand it. So this whole work, this whole chapter, and this paper that comes out of this chapter is a great blessing, is a great tool to be able to help us to understand with our conceptual minds that which is leading up to the non-conceptuality. So we know how to compartmentalize things. Does that make sense to you, Bernie?
Yeah, well, it's nice to see the structure and the way you presented here. It's yeah. I've heard of the different God realms, but I've never thought of them as a single progression from the bottom to the top. And so, yeah, it was very helpful, a list of the different realms and how they can be subdivided the way and categorized the way that you say. It's a very helpful summary of all this because there's the description in the jewel ornament, but it's nowhere near as detailed as what you have here.
Right. And this really comes from this chapter, you know, or rather,
Yeah.
here
Oh,
it was encapsulated in this chapter, and we just put it into a way to be able to understand it a little bit better. So I'm just trying to say it just wasn't pulled out of some kind of thin air or something like that. It was, you know, there was a structure here. Another way of looking at this is that this was the early Buddhism, the Hinayana, you know, the discipline level. So for basically the first 500 years of Buddhism, 500 years or so, um, was, you know, this very simple, God-oriented, you know, way of structuring um, nature and the way things were working within ourselves and so on like that. And it wasn't until the Mahayana, until, you know, 500 years or so after this was being presented, that the idea of the Bodhisattva came along. So this was all a precursor to the Bodhisattva, to the Mahayana. Then the Mahayana superseded the Bodhisattva, because here, you know, this was the work of the Bodhisattva, right? So going from those God-fearing, you know, God praising and culture, now it became, oh, it's you. You're the Bodhisattva. And here's how you can progress through it. And here's all those who were saying that they were the gods and so on, paying homage to that. All right. Would you like to read the next part? Chapter 24 has 174 verses. So obviously we're not going to get through that. But we could. The first group that I would read is from the beginning, from number 1 up to 71, and they're quite short 4-line verses for each one of those. So we could read those if you like, and then we can continue talking about it next week. If you just want to wait until next week, we can do that too. Okay, you want to continue for tonight? Continue going on?
I think so. I think there's not much more to say about the chapter 23. You might as well go on.
Okay. All right. Well, then let me introduce this chapter 24 now. Is what we're going to see is the what, the why, and the how. You know, we've used those 3 words many times in our Buddhism 101, talking about what it is that we're trying to do, why it is we're trying to do it, and how it is that we do it. So it's being laid out here in this chapter. And in this chapter are the 36 courses of action, of the action that we take to now be able to enable this wisdom, this experience of being on the seat of awakening, how it is that we manifest that now. So, and all this section here was during the period of the 7 weeks after the Buddha now had attained enlightenment. So he's on the cushion, he stays on the cushion, so to speak, for 7 weeks. And during these 7 weeks, these things are kind of formulated in his heart mind and being expressed in this particular chapter here. So the chapter, it's called the Trapusa and Bhallika chapter. So these are two brothers who are merchants. We really don't get introduced to them until the very end of this chapter. But there are these two brother merchants who met and made offerings to Buddha near the Bodhi tree 7 weeks after his enlightenment. So the Buddha met with them right after leaving the Bodhi tree, before he began going to Varanasi. So for myself, this is the first time that I had read this or learned this. The story that I always knew was that the Buddha got up off the seat of awakening and then proceeded to walk, over to Varanasi and meet up with his 5 spiritual friends who became his first disciples. But here is another version of the story, which I'm sure is much more authoritative and is very, very interesting. So it includes these prophecies that are in this chapter, the prophecies of Buddha. So it's very, very interesting. So if you don't mind, I'll read this first page, and then Kunga, would you read the second page? And then Bernie, would you read the third page? And then Zara, would you read the fourth page? And please try and be slow and be careful with each of the words, because once again, we're recording this and people, may be listening, watching these videos without the benefit of the text. And if we're sloughing off, these words and everything, it becomes, virtually impossible for somebody to really understand what's being said here. So read it like you're reading to your 8-year-old child. So this is chapter 24, Trapusa and Bhallika. Monks. While the thus gone one was being praised by the gods, after he had reached perfect and complete awakening, he stared at the king of trees without blinking, and without getting out of his cross-legged position. 7 days passed in this way, while he was at the foot of the Bodhi tree, experiencing bliss from the sustenance of concentration and joy. Then, once the 7 days had passed, the gods from the desire realm approached the thus gone one, carrying tens of thousands of vases containing scented water. The gods from the form realms also approached the thus gone one, carrying tens of thousands of vases containing scented water. When they arrived, they bathed the Bodhi tree and the thus gone one with the scented water. Innumerable gods, nagas, yakshas, gandharvas, demigods, garudas, kinnaras, and maharagas, anointing their own bodies with the scented water that had come into contact with the body of the thus gone one. This engendered among them the intention set on excelled, perfect, and complete awakening. Even after the gods and the others had returned to their respective realms, they did not part from the scented water and desired no other scent. Through the joy and the supreme joy that are born from respectively taking to heart the thus gone one, they became irreversibly from unexcelled, perfect, and complete awakening. Monks, then a god named Samanataka Kusama, who had joined in that very audience, bowed down to the feet of the thus gone one, and with palms joined said to him, "What, O Blessed One, is the name of the absorption in which the thus gone one remained for 7 days, without moving from the cross-legged position. Monks, thus addressed, the thus gone one answered the god, "Array of the food of joy. O divine Son, is the nature of the meditative absorption in which the thus gone one remained for 7 days without moving from the cross-legged position." Monks, the god, please continue.
Monks, the god Samantakusama then praised the thus gone one with these verses. Your feet are covered with wheels and shine with the brilliance of stainless thousand-petaled lotuses. The crown of gods brush your feet. To your feet, replete with splendor, I bow down. When he bowed to the feet of the well-gone one, the god became delighted. He said this, which was soothing to gods and humans, and removed their doubt. You give joy to the Sakya clan. You bring an end to attachment, anger, and delusion. You bring the culmination of all wishes. Please dispel the doubts of gods and humans. You have attained immeasurable omniscience, a Buddha with 10 powers. So victorious one, why do you remain at the center of the earth in the cross-legged pose for 7 days? What are you staring at for 7 days, with your eyes that are like blooming 100-petaled lotuses? As you gaze, O lion among men, with your unblinking and pristine eyes, is it your aspiration that makes you remain cross-legged for 7 days at the king of trees? Or is it common to all the lions of speech? With teeth so even and pure, and with supremely fragrant breath of one with 10 powers, please speak words of unadulterated truth, and thus bring joy to gods and humans. The moon-faced one replied, Listen, divine son, to what I say. I will briefly offer a response to these questions. Just as the king does not leave the place where he was consecrated by his kinsfolk for a duration of 7 days, since that is the duty of kings.
Though also victorious one, even with the 10 powers, when consecrated, their aspirations fulfilled, remain in the cross-legged position at the center of the earth for 7 days. Just as a warrior stares at vanquished enemy troops, Buddhas too, at the seat of their awakening, stare at the afflictions now destroyed. Attachment and anger, born from delusion, are like the foes of beings, like thieves with their stolen goods. I have destroyed them here. I have destroyed manifold forms of pride and arrogance too, so that they exist no more. I relinquished all defilements, and the highest wisdom has dawned in me. Here the ignorance that drives the thirst for existence and induces inappropriate actions, a network of roots including latent formations, was burned up by the intense fire of wisdom. Here the belief in I and mine and its tangled of faults, with the roots that extend for not far, knotted tight with obscurations, have been severed by the blade of wisdom. Here those enduring deceptions of mine have at long last been ended in destruction. The aggregates, along with the clinging to them, I have discerned through my wisdom. The dualistic delusions, erroneous fixations, which eventually land one in hell, I have removed here, so that they are certain never to arise again. Here the forest of obscurations has been burnt away by the fire of my root of virtue. I have utterly burned up the fourfold misconceptions too.
The harmful garland of thoughts, strung on the thread of conceptions, I have utterly reversed with the rosaries of the branches of awakening. The 65 travails, the 30 impure delusions, and the 40 misdeeds I eliminated here at the center of the earth. The 16 uncontrolled things, the 18 elements, and the 25 pains I eliminated while sitting at the center of the earth. The 20 streams of passion and the 28 fears of beings I utterly transcended, the force and commitment of my perseverance. Likewise, 500 wars of Buddhas I perfectly comprehended here. Phenomena 100,000 strong I also perfectly comprehended. Here are all the 98 latent formations, down to the bottom of their roots, and all their sprouting shoots were burned up by the fire of my wisdom, the reservoir of doubt and uncertainty, filled with the waters of use from the river of craving, the fount of non-virtue, is dried up by the sun of my wisdom. When I rid myself of pretense and guile, here I cut down the forest of afflictions that is teeming with deception, stinginess, hatred, and jealousy, and burned it up with the fire of my discipline. Here through the medicine of wisdom and most sublime, I purge myself at the root of conflict that induces the nausea of the lower realms, namely disparaging remarks made toward noble ones.
Here I reach the end of all crying, wailing, anguish, and lamentation. Once I attain the absorption in qualities born of wisdom. Here I triumphed over all streams of tormenting anguish, with their tributaries and bends of conceit and negligence. Once I attained the absorption in harmony with truth. Here I cut down, with an axe of mindfulness, the entire dense jungle of afflictions, teeming with the trees of existence and overgrown with the roots of concepts, and burned it up with the fire of my wisdom. Just as Sakra did to the Lord of the demigods, here I destroyed with the sword of wisdom the deceptive one who, self-obsessed, was powerful enough to rule over the three realms. Here at the center of the earth, I cut through the entire snare of 36 courses of action with the powerful sword of insight, then burned it up with the fire of wisdom. Here with the plowshare of trenchant insight, I uprooted all the root afflictions, along with their latent formations, which yield suffering and anguish. Here I cleanse the eye of wisdom, naturally pure in all beings, with the great balm of insight. I remove the thick cataract of delusion. Here, with the sunlight of mindfulness and tranquility, I dried up the ocean of existence, an expanse of craving churned up by the intoxicated crocodiles of the four physical elements.
Here I extinguish with the cool water of liberation the great fire of lust, which its billowing smoke of thought, raging through the timber of objects. Here with the gust of fierce determination, I drove away and dispersed the cloud of latent formations, with its lightning of proclivities and its thunder of concepts. Here I attained the absorption of pristine mindfulness, and struck down with the strong blow of the sword of knowledge the enemies of conceptual mind and actions, in the hostile way they reinforce existence. Here, having acquired love, I vanquished the armies of persistent demon hordes with disfigured shapes bearing the highest crest, on chariots mighty with elephants and horses. Here I fastened down the horse of the six sense fields, engorged with the five sense objects, never careless with intoxication. Once I attained the absorption of repulsiveness. Here I reached the end of infatuation and aggression, the travails of conflicts and disputes. Once I attained the absorption of wishlessness. Here I exhausted all conceits, thoughts, and concepts, rooted inside of me and out. Once I attained the absorption of emptiness. Here I relinquished without exception all the pleasures of gods and humans up to the peak of existence. Once I attained the absorption of signlessness. Here, once I attained the threefold liberation, I completely released all the fetters of existence through the power of my knowledge.
Here, through witnessing causality, I vanished the three causal conceptions: conception of permanence and impermanence, self and lack of self, pleasure and pain. Here at the trunk of the tree of trees, I sever with a blow of impermanence the unfolding of different karmas, all rooted in the sixth sense field. Here, with the sun of wisdom, I dispelled the fog of delusion, debased with the impurities, thick with views of arrogance and anger, thus illuminating what was darkened for so long. Here, with the boat of tenacity, I crossed the great ocean of cyclic existence, with its crocodiles of passion and desire, its waves of craving, and its grasping at wrong views. Here I have awakened to the realization that scorches desire, anger, and delusion and mental concepts like grasshoppers fallen into a forest fire. Oppressed for so long, for billions of countless eons, on the road of cyclic existence, here I am revived, my torment now quelled. Here I have realized the nectar undiscovered by any other exponent, which brings an end to old age, death, and anguish and pain. For the benefit of the world, here I have reached the city of fearlessness, where suffering born of cravings by means of sensory experience and suffering based on the aggregates will arise no more. Here I have realized the great enemies within, and all their multitudes, having bound and burned them up, I have ensured that they can no longer appear.
Here, I'm sorry.
Here I have realized the nectar, for the sake of which I gave up my own flesh, my eyes, and many precious jewels for billions of eons. Here I understood that what was realized by innumerable victorious ones in the past, about which sweet and pleasing words and exclaimed throughout the world. Here I realized the dependently arisen world to be empty, reoccurring in each moment of cognition, like a mirage or a city of Gandharvas. Here I have purified the eye, most sublime, by which I see all worlds, like fruit placed in the palm of the hand. Here I recollected my former lives. I attained the threefold knowledge, then remembered immeasurable myriad eons, as if awaking from sleep. What sets the errant gods and humans aflame and their misconceptions? Yet here I drink the elixir of nectar, truly free of error. Here, after triumphing through the power of love, I drank the elixir of nectar, for the sake of which those with the 10 powers had cultivated love for all beings. Here, having triumphed through the power of compassion, I drank the elixir of nectar, for the sake of which those with the 10 powers cultivated compassion for all beings. Here, having triumphed through the power of joy, I drank the elixir of nectar, for the sake of which those with the 10 powers cultivated joy for all beings.
Here, having triumphed through the power of impartiality, I drank the elixir of nectar, for the sake of which those with 10 powers cultivated impartiality and myriad eons. Here I drank the elixir of nectar that has been drunk by those with the 10 powers, the victorious lions of yore, more numerous than the sand in the river Ganges. The words that I said before Mara and his army were, I will not get out of the cross-legged position until I bring an end to old age and death. I destroyed ignorance with blazing Vajra-hard wisdom and attained the state of the 10 powers. That is why I now abandon the cross-legged position. I attained the level of a worthy one, exhausted all my defilements, and destroyed the demon horde. That is why I now get out of the cross-legged posture. I here rent asunder the closed doors of the 5 obstructions and cut through the vines of craving. Now I get out of the cross-legged posture. So these 71 verses are all part of the 36 courses of action. These are the 36 courses of action. So you might want to take some time on your own. This is the how. Here are the verbs of action. So starting with the first one, if we go to 24:14 and carrying on, each one of the verses has an operative verb. So the first one is vanquished. The next one is destroyed. The next one after that is relinquished. Then is burned up. Then is severed. Then is discerned. Then is removed. Then is burned up again. Then is reversed. Eliminated. Eliminated again. Transcended. Comprehended. Burned up another time. Dried up. burned up a fourth time. So my point is, going through this and seeing these 30 these um, what did I say? There were 32 of them. I'm sorry, I lost my place. Oh, the 36 courses of action. So there were 30. So anyway, so it's digging into this. It's like, it's poetry or whatever, and digging out, these operative words that are telling us, what's going on. And then on the other side are the kings, the victorious ones that stare, the attachment, anger, and delusion, the pride, the network of roots, I and mine severed, aggregates, delusion and fixations. So in other words, it's the nouns of what it is that these verbs are working on. So you're seeing the clever use of the language here to be able to take us through these changes, these operative ways in which now the awakened one is now able to operate in the world of desire beings, in the desire world and so on. Because it's for the benefit of these beings that all this is taking place. Any comments or questions?
Let's see. So,
Lance, I just wanted to clarify, who is actually speaking right now? It's the two brothers?
No, this is the Russ Gone one.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Wait a minute.
well, there's some
No,
speech
it's
by the gods too, right?
well, no, the gods ask him questions and then he responds.
Right.
So this is his response.
Okay.
Yeah, it's up to verse 10, I think, that
So
is the God's question, and then
let me see
Buddha
here.
responds. And he justifies why he's sitting for 7 days in meditation after he attained enlightenment first. And then he praises his accomplishments, or he states his accomplishments. And then he explains why he's now getting out of the cross-legged posture, his meditative posture. So we're just advancing the action a little bit by 7 days after his enlightenment.
Yeah, he's speaking in the first person, but he's requested by Samantapa Kusma. So, my going through and just rattling off this stuff, I don't think is going to make a big hill of beans right now. I think, if you're interested, you'll dig it out yourself and study it a little bit. I think that's the purpose of what we're doing, is to inspire, each one of us to do that, and it, it puts us more firmly on the seat of that awakening. Otherwise, what are we distracted with? And as a result of doing this, it's like the preparation that you do for a meditation. As you go through this, it's like a meditation. And what you come out of this with is a samadhi. All the stuff that we might occupy our time with, watching television, reading fanciful magazines, entering into meaningless conversation, all the different things that we do, we begin to see, oh, it's not any of these things. I've cut through all that. I learned to do this. I learned this is what the Buddha had done, and he's giving me permission to be able to do this too. And then after doing this, how do I feel? I can't wait to go down and turn on television? Or, do I say, wow, I could sit here for another hour and not have to think about a thing. I could just stay in this samadhi. And isn't that what we're trying to do?
Oh, you can't stay there forever. The Buddha said, right? You gotta eat, gotta go to the bathroom.
But you take it
Gotta
with
talk
you.
to people. Yeah, right. That's
But
the
you
goal,
take it
right?
with you.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, there's traditionally in the Abhidharma, it says there's a limit to how long any state of samadhi can last, I think. I mean, no, not samadhi, but the jhana
21,
states.
21 days.
I forget what it is. It might be 21 days, but
I think I heard
uh,
like
jhana, I was thinking of jhana, which is actually not quite the same thing as samadhi, which is limited. But the samadhi is a more general term, and it can apply to any kind of meditation which is sufficiently powerful, I think. So I was misunderstanding there. I was thinking of jhana, but it's actually samadhi. Um, I can't think of it. Does anyone have the formal definition of samadhi? It's probably in
The
the
revealed
glossary.
equality of the nature of all phenomena. That's from the King
Well,
of
the
Samadhi.
equality of that's one kind of
That's
samadhi.
the
To
King
see
of Samadhi.
that's the king of samadhi. To see but the more general term is there are many different kinds of samadhi, and there's a general definition of the term in the glossary samadhi, because it has a somewhat different meaning in Hinduism, at least in the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali. It's different than its meaning in Buddhism. Let me see if I can get my glossary here and look up the term. Volume
It's
4.
not in the glossary.
It's not in the glossary.
Mm-mm.
I don't have samadhi.
Mm-mm.
All
I
right,
guess
here in the encyclopedia.
okay. What does it say in the encyclopedia?
Well, it's quite a bit.
I mean, I can always look it up online, of course, to
Yeah.
definition of samadhi.
So do you want the Hindu or you want the
The
Buddhist?
Buddhist, of course, because they differ.
All right. Samadhi. Collectedness of the mind on a single object through gradual calming of mental activity.
So it's just one-pointedness, a one-pointed
Yeah.
meditation.
And then it continues on. Samadhi is a non-dualistic state of consciousness in which the consciousness of the experiencing subject becomes one with the experienced object. So in other words, the meditator and the meditation.
So it's non-dual.
Thus is only experiential content. This state of consciousness is often referred to as one-pointedness of mind. This expression, however, is misleading because it calls up the image of concentration on one point on which the mind is directed. However, samadhi is neither a straining concentration on one point, nor is the mind directed from here, subject, to there, object, which would be a dualistic mode of experience. The ability to attain the state of samadhi is a precondition for absorption, dhyana. And it goes on, gives a little bit more definition of different levels of samadhi. So in the general sense, what you say is absolutely correct. It's a one-pointed mindfulness, but one where it's effortlessness at the same time.
Well, maybe.
And that's the revealed equality of the nature of all phenomena, because you begin to see everything as samadhi, but there's no seeing. It's seeing with the heart, the heart mind. There's no action. No action required.
I think seeing the equality of all phenomena has more to do with emptiness than anything else, because
well, of course it does.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes, and it's the human experience, right?
right.
It's the human experience of becoming your true nature, which is inexpressible.
Well, yeah. One day I'm going to write all this down and explain, well, but not today. Yeah, it's difficult drawing the distinction between saying something is beyond concept and then explaining it in terms of Buddhist philosophy, because there's certain tension between the two of them.
Well, of course.
Because in the one case we have an explanation, in the other sense we say, well, it's beyond all explanations.
It's just a pointing to it.
Limited concepts.
Well, that's right.
It gets a little complicated. And one day I want to write down what I think about all this, but I don't have my thoughts together yet, because I watch videos on YouTube, and one guy, Brad Warner, he did a video on Buddha nature, and he says, well, Buddha nature finally is just saying that the nature of, it's just a word for expressing that everything is beyond concepts. Well, not quite. I don't agree with that. And emptiness.
Well,
and
who would
Buddha
say
nature,
that?
Who would say that?
Who would say that?
Well, he said that, and I didn't agree with what he had to say right there. And so I wanted to write down a response about that. And
there's no words for it.
You can't just say that, all this is beyond concept, because that's a little saying like, it's a little too easy to say that. You have to understand these ideas like emptiness and Buddha nature really takes a little bit more intellectual firepower than that. But I'm not prepared to defend that point of view quite yet. I'm still thinking about it. So tonight, no, I don't have an explanation. But when somebody just says, well, we're just all pointing to what is beyond concept, that's true in one sense, but I don't think it's a complete explanation in another, because I think really the ultimate truth also has an intellectual content as well as being beyond concept. It has both. And I can't explain exactly what that means right now, but that's the way I feel about it.
Well, I think it's all an invention of the human being. It's all an invention of mine,
Well,
and
in the sense
we're just following the thought
everything
in
since
that sense.
everything since painting on the walls of caverns is the invention of human beings, but that doesn't mean it's worthless for sure.
No, I didn't say it was.
But so there's a point to it. And just
I think Kunga
uh,
would like to
uh,
say something.
Well,
okay,
I was
go
just
ahead, Kunga.
interested in how Bernie got interested in Brad Warner since I think he's a
He's
Soto Zen practitioner. Yeah.
I read
I
his
don't know.
book, his first book. What was it? Hardcore Zen a while ago. The thing I find refreshing about him is he's not pretentious. And too often Buddhist teachers come across as pretentious, but he comes across as a regular guy, and that makes him rather refreshing as far as Western teachers of Buddhism are concerned. So that's the quality that I like about him. But when he ever gets into the field of philosophy or the conceptual side of Buddhism, I think he gets a little bit he makes he's not I can't say he's wrong, but I don't think he's got the complete understanding there either. He really is not have a philosophical bent of mind, and I think that's one of his limitations. So it's kind of stimulating listening to him because he makes me think. He said, how could I say this better? Because I think a lot of times like when he was talking about Buddha nature, I think it could be said better than he tried to explain it. So that's my attraction to him. It's like seeing a painting that's on the wall slightly tilted, and you want to go up and set it straight, that kind of thing. But that's probably my what would you call it? It's probably my not ignorance is not quite the right word. It's probably my fault or something like that I feel like that.
Well, it's 9:15. You want to have a short little question and answer?
Question and answer?
Yeah.
Who gets to
If
ask?
I'm going to put forth an idea, and then we can follow it and see where it goes in just a few minutes.
Okay.
If in the Bardo Total we talk about that there are the afflictive emotions, and also that there are the mental misconceptions, and that there are the habitual tendencies. The, the afflictive emotions are what blocks up the heart center. The afflictive emotions have their root in the brain where the mental misconceptions are. And because we don't know, what this is and what that is, because we have these mental misconceptions, we create these emotions which block up the heart. And the heart is the big mind, for lack of a better word, is the spiritual center, is the true nature that we're all trying to get to. The habitual tendencies is still the activity of the residual things that have not been purified through the activity of cleansing the mental misconceptions and cutting off the roots that become the emotions. So the mental misconceptions are really the point of being like the 11th bhumi. that we go through these bhumis of purification, of being on the tree, if you want to use as an example, of going up, using the circle of the example of a spiral going up. We get to the very, very point, the 10th point of being able to be liberated. But then there's the bodhisattva is at that point. But then the bodhisattva stops and says, oh, I need to be able to remain to be able to help other beings, and I know how to do that. I have a concept that needs to be explained. And it's that concept that keeps them from being a Buddha. Because once that is given up, once that is liberated, then is the Buddha nature on the other side of that. That's the cutting through and crossing over.
Yeah, well, okay. Yeah, we're going to
So
have
just let me finish 1 second.
Okay, okay.
Just one more. So it is the obscuration of wisdom, the wisdom obscuration, you see, that is the last vestige of being a human being, being attached to being a human being.
Okay. Okay. First of all, we to understand all this stuff, we have to go to geez, my mind is going, I'm tired. But in Buddhist what do you think? What do they call it? Buddhist theory of knowledge, whatever, Buddhist epistemology. They draw a distinction between the first moment of thought and subsequent moment of thoughts. First moment of thought apprehends the phenomena. The second is sort of a conceptual elaboration. And in that conceptual elaboration, which is what you're talking about, it's false to the actual experience because it deals in terms of generalities. We see a sunset, and just seeing it as it is, we say, oh, it's a sunset. We put it into the general concept, and we say, oh, it's particularly nice today. And so we compare it to all the sunsets we've seen in the past, and perhaps all sorts of other things get caught up in that too. Well, I better do this before it gets dark, whatever. So that whole interweaving of conceptual thoughts there is what needs to be cut through. But that does not mean that all conceptual thought is an obstacle. What it means is the conceptual thought that misidentifies the phenomena with our thoughts about it is the obstacle. And it's that misidentification that is the problem. Instead of seeing the thing for what it is, we see it in terms of either a general concept or as in terms of our desires or aversions to the particular phenomena. So it's that sort of thing which is the problem that needs to be overcome. Now, in the second part, you were talking about the wisdom obscuration. Generally, in emptiness, we talk about two classes of obscurations. The first being the obscurations of afflictive emotions, and the second being the coverings of what the obscurations of wisdom. The obscurations of wisdom being having our conceptual misidentification, but this is somewhat a different concept than you see it in Buddhist epistemology because we have the two different traditions. And what they're talking about is not seeing things as merely conventional understandings, but rather taking what we think of as conventional as being ultimately true. We misidentify the conventional with the ultimate, and we think that what we have conceived of reality is how it really is, whereas it's just our habitual patterns. So it's not so much abandoning the conventional as just seeing it as conventional, which is the issue right to there. So that's my more than 2 cents about the whole thing.
Well, all that is experienced within the mind.
Of course, where
And the
else?
mind,
Where
and the
else?
mind arises out of emptiness.
No, it doesn't arise out of emptiness. It was empty from the start.
Right. So it's that interplay. It's that like that final duality. What comes first, the chicken or the egg? Does the emptiness come first, or does all the thoughts of the
Well,
emptiness come first?
this
You
is
know,
yeah, this
and
is
and
the
so and so
okay.
the point of the absolute, or the point of the ultimate, right away we're using a word to try and describe something that as human beings we simply can't know. We can't know in an intellectual sense. And whether or not we know it in a heart sense, whether we know it in that sense is indescribable too. And that's the faith. And it really comes down to that.
Yeah, well, I don't disagree with you, but I think it could be said anyway. Uh, it's getting late, and don't want to get into a long argument, and I can't even
Well, it's
think
no
of
argument.
anything now.
It's a discussion.
It's a well discussion and argument. The difference between the two is the degree of heat. Really, really, that's the only difference
Heat.
between the
What do you mean
discussion
heat?
and an
What do you mean
argument.
heat?
You mean emotion involved in it,
Ah,
if we talk about
right.
politics,
Well, it's a
then
question
it
of
becomes an
ego.
argument.
It's a question of ego, and that's the point that
Oh yeah.
that the bodhisattva who holds on to being a bodhisattva for the sake of other beings can't be a Buddha,
Yeah. I don't
because
know.
the Buddha is the Buddha regardless of what it is, where it is, anything else. Its body, speech, and mind is the expression of love.
Well, bodhisattvas aren't too bad
and
on the
and
subject
and
of
as a
love
human
either.
being, that's like it's the least common denominator or
Well, yeah,
something
well,
like.
bodhicitta is founded on love. If there was no love, there could be no
Well, that's
Buddhism.
right, that's right, and it's a human invention
Why do you say that?
to try and give an intellectualization to that experience that we have in that moment of realization that we're insignificant, that it doesn't matter, that we're, humans don't know. We're just humans. And that we are part and parcel of everything else that we think we know. And that becomes our attachment, that becomes our delusion. And we despise anything that argues that.
Well, sure, that's the ego. That's the
Yeah.
biggest
And it
problem.
really comes down to that. It's very simple. See, some people try and make it complicated. Other people try and make it very simple. So
Well,
the complicated people will say, oh, it's too simple. And the simple people say, oh, it's too complicated.
well, a lot could be
Well,
said about
in either
that.
case, we don't know. It can't be
There's a
proved.
lot that could be said about that, but probably not tonight. Yeah, the experience of enlightenment is ultimately it's very simple, I think. It's like it's the old story in Zen, of course, is a guy who falls down the cliff and grabs onto a branch and hangs on it for dear life. And then finally he loses his grip and falls, but he only falls 6 inches. So yeah, it's
So,
very simple.
so the parts
And
of bodhicitta is the loving kindness and the compassion.
well,
Other part, but the other parts of the bodhicitta is the joy and is
Well,
the equanimity.
well, yeah,
If
it's
there's no joy, if there's no joy, then there's no bodhicitta.
yeah,
So
well, the
where
joy
can you
is,
find, so the question is, in any of the arguments, in any of the discussion positions, is there joy in that?
well, the joy is in the sympathetic joy. It's joy in the happiness of others.
Well,
So it
some
goes along with
places you'll see it
compassion.
described as empathetic joy, not sympathetic
Empathetic
joy.
joy, sympathetic.
Sympathetic
Yeah.
joy implies pity.
Well, pity is more like compassion, and there's nothing wrong with feeling sorry for people who have fallen into problems, even
Well,
if
that's the
it's their own
intellectual
fault.
argument. That's the
Uh,
intellectual, so breaking down joy into sympathy or empathy, but,
but then finally, there's equanimity, which is sort of the balance between the two.
well, and that's the balance of all things.
Yeah.
That's the balance of the body, speech, and mind.
But beyond that, bodhicitta is not only the four immeasurables, it's also the understanding that the only solution to the problems of suffering is through enlightenment. So one has the motivation to
But
practice
replace the word enlightenment with liberation.
liberation, of course, yeah, liberation, and one has to practice diligently in
So
order to gain it.
what does liberation mean?
Liberation means liberation from the defilements, basically.
From means freedom.
What you're liberated from is from the defilements, one of which is
Yes,
ignorance.
and so what is the result of that is freedom.
It's freedom
And even to be
from,
liberated from the idea of freedom,
well,
to be
the
liberated
actual
from all
experience.
concept,
Well,
to be liberated from being a human being.
okay. We're going to have to leave it here tonight
And
because
is there joy in that?
yeah, it's yeah, I don't disagree with anything you say, Lance, but I think it could be said a little more clearly sometimes. I don't
Well,
this everything you
the problem
say
with
is
it, the
fine.
problem with it is the abstract ambiguity of it.
Yeah,
That's
that's
that
reason.
that's the human
Uh,
problem with it. But
yeah,
an
it's a
enlightened
reason
being
why.
doesn't care.
But that's a reason why I'm not. I'm always well. I'm not angry at Brad Warner. I'm not certainly not. I like him very much. But sometimes I say, "Oh my God, Brad, why did you say it that way? Why didn't why aren't you a little bit clearer? You don't
Well,
say."
have compassion for him.
Well, I don't have compassion. He doesn't need my compassion, but
And have compassion
sometimes
for
I think,
yourself for not understanding.
well, I don't think that's true either. I don't know. Maybe I should cultivate a sense of humor about everything, I guess.
Amen.
Cultivate a sense of humor because I'm too serious sometimes. It's probably
Amen.
my fault because I'm too serious. Too serious and too what's the right word? What's the opposite? What's conscientious? Persnickety, I guess is the right
Well,
word.
we
Persnickety.
tend to overthink things, and our ego says that we can know.
Well,
That's the problem.
I can't help it. I was paid to think
The
for
knowing is the
years.
unknowing. The
I
knowing
was
is the
paid.
unknowing of what our limits are.
It's why the space telescope is flying because I spent all my time thinking of
Yeah. I'd rather see him figure out
thinking
a way
about
to
it. Okay.
keep fires from happening.
Something's got, I can't think about the subjunctive mode in Spanish all the time.
Well, anyway, I don't want you to turn into a pumpkin.
Uh, okay. Yeah. When I was in kindergarten, this is final story, life story. We had a little play, and each person in the play had to recite a poem from Mother Goose. And my poem was Peter, Peter, Pumpkin Eater. So that's put her in a pumpkin shell, and there he kept her very well. So
Very good.
I still remember that. I have no idea why I still remember the poem I recited in kindergarten, but that's one of my memories.
All right. Um, Kunga, you got any comment?
No, I've enjoyed hearing what you were talking about.
Zara, you have any comment?
I'm just listening to the two of you, like left and right hands, talk to each other.
Okay.
Very, very cute.
Yeah, that's good. That's what it is. All right. By the virtues collected in the three times, by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the innate word of virtue, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious enlightenment. May the teachings of the great tree Kumpa Ratna Shri, who is omniscient, Lord of the Dharma, master of interdependence, continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara. Om, Ah, Hum. Om, Ah, Hum. Om, Ah, Hum. May my body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones for the benefit of all sentient beings. Thank you very much.
Okay. Until next week.
Until
And
next
I
week.
will sidetrack the conversation yet again.
That's quite all right. It was
Okay.
good. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Hasta luego. Good night.
Hasta luego.
Hasta
Thanks.
luego. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oscillator.
See you later.
Oscillator.